Well, somebody I would be more surprised if they kicked the tires on would be a first baseman, because even though Christian Walker looks like a cop over there with that goddamn mustache he's growing, he's still very good defensively, and he's been pretty good offensively this year. But let's talk about potentially bringing back home our boy, Paulie G. Paul Goldschmidt. Sure, it's a dream. Maybe some of you don't even want it now at this point. And I understand, because Paul Goldschmidt being traded for just to come back here and potentially just play DH isn't the greatest use of the Diamondbacks farm system and trading those guys out. But let's take a look at his stats this year, because honestly, again, this is kind of like the Arenado thing. It's not to say that he's not good offensively, but is it worth it to make a trade for someone like Paul Goldschmidt?
And obviously, all depends on the price, but man, it would be really fun.
Didn't you guys talk about this on TPSP a few weeks ago?
Probably, yeah. It got brought up earlier today, and then Mac had brought it up a couple weeks ago.
Mac just won't stop bringing it up.
Yeah, she literally will not. She brought it up the other day. She can't stop talking about it.
Benjamin Hunley wants to bring back Max Scherzer. That's enough. If you want, we'll
go get JD Martinez.
We'll work that one into these trade deadline talks too. But honestly, we were supposed to get these out of the way before Jesse came back. Obviously, we know Paul Goldschmidt is not being traded for to bring back to the Diamondbacks. But what would it look like, and what would be some good reasons to bring him back? Obviously, here looking at his offense, he did definitely bring a lot to this team. Obviously, it's going to make the fan base pretty happy to have Goldschmidt back in a Diamondbacks uniform.
I feel like that would be most of the reason you do it.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the pros and cons, and that is one of our pros. Nostalgia. Nostalgia and nostalgia. We got that one in there twice, but also excellent right-hand bat, obviously. That's probably the biggest pro of bringing someone like Goldschmidt in, is just evening this lineup out, giving them that option, and having that threat constantly offensively that can, win you baseball games.
Goldie also has full no-trade protection, so that's still a bit of an obstacle. Although, he seemed to enjoy his time in Arizona. You figure of all teams, where he might consider waiving that, the Diamondbacks may be one of them.
For sure.
But yeah, the money is not as big of an issue with Goldie as it is with Arenado. It's about $7.5 million the rest of this year, about $22 million that he's due next year. So those numbers are, I think, a little bit more reasonable. If the Cardinals ate a portion of that, I think the Diamondbacks would maybe be willing to take on a contract of that size. But it really all comes down to positional fit. Like when you have Christian Walker on your team, who probably should have been an all-star, it is a little weird to go trade for one of the best first basemen in the National League. It's like, yes, that would improve this team, but you'd probably be better served using those assets elsewhere.
Cogs asks, what's he getting paid this next year and a half? Roughly $29.5 million.
Yeah,
$7.5 million left this year, $22 million next year. And then, again, it's kind of more for the fun of it, I feel like.
And it would be fun. Could you imagine how crazy fans would go if the Diamondbacks did that?
As far as this season is concerned, it would be a positive contribution. Even if he is just DHing, it would be a pretty damn good DH.
Yeah.
So,
well, and we've talked about in the past that we are a little bit sad of missing out on JD Martinez, considering what he's doing for the Dodgers, right?
Just
it seemed like they got him for relatively cheap compared to, or that it was a deal the Diamondbacks could have gotten. But obviously, position players are going to be something the Diamondbacks look at. But as we go forward, our focus will be on the starting pitching options for the Diamondbacks, those targets, as well as some relief targets. And I feel like if you're a D-backs fan, that is really your primary focus. Like Sean said, we're going to be more upset if the trade deadline comes and goes and they got a third baseman and no pitching help, rather than if they get a pitcher and no third baseman. So keep it locked right here. We will keep breaking down all of the potential trade candidates for this team. And we will be diving into that next week full force, because the trade deadline is just around the corner.